Did you know that I still do the photo Mish Mash? It's just for Photo Enthusiast Network members. This is part of this community that I started with several other photographer friends of mine last year, and it's going really, really well. Photo Mish Mash is basically the same. You talk about the week's photo news, review some gear pieces, chat about what's coming up, and share discussion, as well as, and this is the important piece, critique your photos. And we don't just say, hey, that's a great photo, next one. We take time to tell you what we love about the photo, what you could do differently next time to make it even better. And we just really focus on building you up and giving you the tools and knowledge you need to be a better photographer. And that's just this show. The whole Photo Enthusiast Network community is packed full of helpful people and hundreds of hours of content, from Lightroom training to Photoshop to portraits to Flash, tutorials, and lots more. You can learn more about it at photorec.tv/pen, P-E-N. But for now, you get to watch this show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Photo Mish Mash. This one being broadcast live January 10th, 2018. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Steve Scurich of Steve Scurich Photography. Steve.
Hello.
How you doing?
You all?
And of course, we're joined by our wonderful friends in the chat room who make this show much more interesting than just Steve and I talking to each other in our empty rooms. I've made it a little bit warmer. I might have made it too warm. What do you think, Steve?
No, I like it. It looks good.
Do I look like I'm being lit by the setting sun?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Very warm. In fact, your screen was always warmer than mine anyway. That's why I kind of moved my whole setup, other than the fact that I didn't know how professional it was having people in my bedroom every week. But put a light on, but it's still not as warm as I'd like. I'm a little envious of what you got going on there.
Well, you're looking more professional than me broadcasting from my office/kids room /kennel. Check this out. Hold on, let me get this guy over here. Chris isn't here today, so she went off to work, and so I've got.
What's up, Archer?
The dog's keeping me company, and I like it when they do that. When I actually feel like they love me and want to hang around with me.
Yeah, yeah.
But this isn't a show to talk about my cute dogs. This is a show to talk about the week's photo news, critique some of your photos, and share other kind of interesting chit chat as we do. And now we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different stories. You can find the links to those stories, plus more that we're not even going to talk about, but you might find interesting, at photorec.tv/MMH, Mish Mash Highlights, MMH. So go find that and follow along with us as we kind of jump in. The first part of the show, if you've never watched before, is where we talk about things that we've already talked about. Stuff that's gone out either through the Photo Enthusiast Network or on Photorec TV or wherever. And Steve, you had a Tuesday tip that went out this week. You want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah, it was a bit of a double whammy, actually, because you guys were in Yosemite on the McKay tour and I wasn't there. So I was charged with doing the Friday wrap-up, which David tends to do because, you know, he can just knock that stuff out pretty quickly. So did that. Hope you guys got a chance to see that and went back and saw anything from last week. But then this week, I did the Tuesday tip on creating sunbursts in your photos. And I know it's wintertime, but there are moments like today in Knoxville, it's actually about 70 degrees and the sun has been in the sky bright all day. But just a good chance to go out and kind of play around, shoot into the sun, try different lenses out. Hopefully you learned a little something about how sunbursts are created or why they're created in our lenses. And, you know, not all sunbursts are the same. So I definitely encourage you to just kind of go out there and practice. And like I said at the very end, for those of you that were able to hang on, it's a chance to really get even more familiar with the manual settings on your camera. You're relying on the manual settings to do sunburst shooting. You are staring right into the sun, so you really can't trust your eyes on the LCD on the back of the camera. You really need to rely on your histogram. And so hopefully some of that made sense in the email. And I would love to see your shots, so please share them.
Yep, that would be great. You can post those in the forum. And of course, We should start an Instagram hashtag too for when people want to kind of share what's being covered in those Tuesday tips. But I'm really proud of them. I mean, I think they're packed full of great information, and the Tuesday tips alone are almost worth the value of the membership. So it's good. Good tip. I put out a video on best practices for a new year in Lightroom. Basically, I showed how to take last year's catalog, smush it into what I call an archive, then create yourself a new catalog and head off into the starbursty sunset, all ready to go for a new year. You know, I like to keep my catalogs kind of lean and clean, but I also like to have a spot to go where I find all of my past pictures. And I think that's where you really start to see the benefit of Lightroom. If you've got several years worth of pictures into one catalog, and you can go and say, show me all of my 5-star pictures. There they are across all of the time that you've been shooting, across all of the time that you've put them into Lightroom. I think that's really powerful and really useful. And the whole kind of like remembering which year you took which picture, remembering where such and such a favorite picture is, and having to open that specific catalog, I think that just kind of slows you down. I will say that I've been pretty frustrated with Lightroom in the last 24 hours. I've been working on these time lapses that I shot in Yosemite. We had some epic cloud movements. So I was shooting, now I am shooting 42 megapixel uncompressed raw images. I think I was shooting uncompressed. So these are big images. They're like 90 megabytes a piece, but Lightroom is just, oh man, it has really slowed down. And we're talking, I've got, you know, maybe 1,000 pictures in there, you know, if that, in this new catalog. So I restarted it. It's a little bit better. What I actually need to do is reread Roy's post. Roy, where can we find that? We should put that in pen about Lightroom tips for running Lightroom efficiently and kind of getting the best performance out of it. I need to reread those and try a couple of things and see, but I was a little bummed.
Yeah, I'd like to go back and reread that as well, because I've got some Lightroom cleanup that I need to do, and I've just been dragging my feet on it.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things I'm going to try moving forward is using the smart previews for development. So even if I'm working on the same drive, using those instead of trying to do the full resolution ones, because it just slows down the machine, especially for time lapses where I'm trying to quickly edit lots and lots. You would think, oh, I could just sync them, but there was a couple of things that made me need to touch 60 images in a row and move the gradient just a little bit on each image.
Ooh,
so yeah. It was a little like, I almost like, oh man, can I set up a macro to do this? I mean, I think I could, but it would probably take me longer to set up a keyboard macro that like automatically did it than I did it.
Yeah, anyway. But then you'd have bragging rights. I mean, don't.
That's true. That's true.
This is going to be kind of interesting. This trip coming up when we leave in a couple of days in Vietnam. You know, you and I have been talking for a long time about kind of traveling lighter.
Yep.
And this is one of those trips that we've been had in our sights about how we're going to travel for this trip, and we'd like to travel light. So this is the first trip that I'm going to take where I'm going to use. I'm not even bringing my laptop. I'm going to use the iPad. And I haven't done much with it yet, other than just figuring out how to import my raw photos into it from a CF card, and then get them into Lightroom CC. And then I've got the Apple Pencil to be able to do some fine-tuning edits in Lightroom CC. And so far, it seems to be going pretty well. But I haven't played around with it very much. But I was just kind of playing around, getting my backpack set up before the show, and boy, is my bag a lot lighter just by doing that. And there's a few other things that I'm going to cut out of it, but I'm actually going to go back to one of my older bags, which is, I thought that I just outgrew and I shoved it up in a closet somewhere. And I'm going to bring that pack because it's so much lighter and so much smaller.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes with Lightroom. I mean, we'll be chatting about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I'm definitely interested. In the same vein, you kind of inspired me.
There you go.
I'm bringing it along. That's the Surface.
Are you are you borrowing that, testing it, or did you? Yeah. Good move.
So we'll see. I mean, this is definitely lighter than my laptop. by about 2.5 pounds, I think, maybe even a little bit more once you start to calculate in the weight of the power cord. I was looking around for the power. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. This is a full-fledged computer though, so I'm not too worried about it, but it is a Windows. I'm a little more used to Mac and a little more comfortable with Mac, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And in chat, Caroline asked about time lapses in Lightroom. Roy, you've answered her. Fantastic job. There's a post about it. You can kind of tweak and use the built-in presets in the slideshow module to make a fast time lapse. But if you want to go higher than 1080, you should look at plugins like LR time lapse, which is quite good.
Yeah, and one other thing I was going to mention, I put it in the Friday wrap up just in the section in case you missed it. But I've seen, and this is just awesome. This is why we love being part of Photo Enthusiast Network. Is quite a while ago, one of the first lessons, actually probably the first lesson that I ever did, is on applying a virtual mat in Photoshop. And it's really gotten a lot of legs. There's a lot of people that have been asking about it, using it, commenting on it, and sharing their photos. And I just couldn't be happier seeing that. I think it was Maritza's sister, Nancy, asked recently on Facebook if there was something that a tutorial on how to do virtual matting. So just a reminder to go into the membership area, check on Photoshop lessons, check on any of the lessons. And many times there's lessons in there that maybe you guys haven't seen yet that might surprise you. And then there's some stuff that if it's older and we've imported it in at the start of the company, we may go back and kind of do an update at some point. But there is just a ton of material in there. And that's just one example, but it's been so nice to see you folks sharing your pictures with these virtual mats. I just absolutely love it. And so thank you for that. Yep,
that's great. A couple of quick things that went out. We posted about the Inrigo camera bag that is fully waterproof with a Bluetooth sensor built in that pings your phone if the humidity level or moisture level in the bag gets higher than a set amount, which that's a nice kind of peace of mind of either it's leaking or, you got humidity problems inside the bag, which aren't very good. It looks pretty nice. It comes with these camera cubes. It's on Kickstarter right now, so that's linked, and you can go check out our post about it and then go on and back it at the Kickstarter level if you want. But one thing that I think is kind of interesting is, or I'd say concerning, is if you're like paddling along out there or something, your phone is probably going to be in the bag as well. So that humidity sensor alert, how is it going to ping you so much? But it does have a little readout on the bag if you have that module installed. So it certainly looks interesting. I'm excited to do a hands-on at some point in the future.
Is that the bag that I may have clicked through to that? Is that like their second iteration of the bag, or was that a different company that I'm thinking of? Their second Kickstarter?
This is their second Kickstarter. They did the Case Air Remote, which is the little kind of remote module to fire your camera and see live view and stuff like that. This is their first for a bag, I think.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different company then.
Yeah. Quick prints on the go. Roy just posted this article today. It's a look at how I'm using that little Polaroid zip printer. I'm bringing it to Vietnam, and we're also going to Cambodia to give prints to people, to natives. That's not really condescending to call them natives. People that live there. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. People that live there, they love having their picture taken, is what I've heard. And one of my main goals for this trip is to come away with some really nice people portraits and street scenes. And I think in addition to tipping them, as Joe has told us that in some places they kind of expect that or like that, it'd be nice to hand them a picture too. Like, here, I just took a nice picture of you. Here's one for you. I'm going to go post this on my social media, but you can hang this on your wall. So one option is this little mobile zip printer. It's certainly not perfect, and its color is a little funky, but for quick, simple prints, it's really neat and powerful. And of course, Fuji's got a bunch of different cameras out now that do the printing automatically, and some of them are a good bit nicer than they were just a year or two ago. So you can go read a little bit more about that.
So I have a question about the zip print.
Yeah.
The one that you have. Is it very quick? Have you gotten a chance to play around with it very much?
Yes. Once you say print, it's less than a minute.
Okay.
But for me, I realized this in Yosemite, and I kind of knew this thinking about it. For me, it is take a picture with my camera, send that wirelessly to my phone, do a quick edit, and then send it to the printer. And so I don't know, I may be taking some of these pictures with my phone to be able to print directly and just say, here, this isn't the exact same picture I just took with my camera, but this is a nice picture of you as well. Because that two-step process is a little cumbersome. And then, of course, how much time do I want to spend editing it and things like that? Why I could be taking more pictures. I don't want to edit a whole lot in the field. But once you hit print, I'm pretty impressed with the speed of it.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I don't know if you remember, but I brought the Polaroid Snap to Tanzania, and it prints on the zip paper, the same one. It's got a sticky back, right? Yeah,
mine doesn't. It's just kind of like a rectangular Polaroid look.
Oh, okay. It might be a different setup then. And I was frustrated with it because I'd take some pictures of the folks in the tribe, and then I'd sit there and it was just like waiting for toast to come out of the toaster. And you got a million kids running around wanting their picture taken, and they all want printouts. And I finally just stuffed it in my pocket. I'm like, the heck with this. And you just take good pictures.
We'll see.
Because it was just took so long.
Yeah. It's definitely not that fast or so fast that it's like, boom, here's your print. We'll see how it feels in the real world when you're like, hold on, let me give you a print. Oh, wait, don't leave yet. Oh, I know you have to like take your food home, but wait, hold on. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Another post that went out, and it's very timely because today pre-orders have gone live. Sony announced last week that they are going to be releasing the 18 to 135 for their APS-C cameras. Now, Steve, I know you got really excited about this because I think we had a typo somewhere. We said it was an 18 to 35 f2.5 lens, I think.
Yeah.
No, sorry. It's regular f3.5 to 5.6 optical stabilization. This is going to be paired with their A6000 series, 6300, 6500, 6000.
Well, so here was the thing, and 3.5 is still really good. But it's 3.5 to 5.6, and I read that at first, and I just saw the f2.5, and my thought was, okay, this would be expensive. However, this would be so awesome to have an A6500 with this lens on it at a 2.5, because then you've got so much range covered in addition to being able to shoot the stars. And I thought, talk about a perfect camera for Vietnam. Although this lens isn't even going to come out until after we're home from Vietnam, right? Or it's coming out while we're there or something.
Yeah, I actually don't remember off the top of my head, but pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I know not as exciting as you thought, but I do think overall it'll be a really nice pairing with the Sony A1000 series.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see Sony releasing an APS-C lens. This is their first from Sony in over 4 years.
Yeah, and it really is an awesome range, and the price is outstanding. I don't know if you mentioned this. I think it was like $650, $700, something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
That's when I looked at it, and I'm like, man, I want to get this thing. And then after last week, I was just telling the audience how I'm good on camera gear for the next 12 months. There's not one other thing I need. There's usually never anything I need. It's a want. And anyway, I was kind of happy to put that to bed, but I still think it's absolutely great.
Yep. All right, that's the wrap up of the wrap up. And before I forget though, we're talking about travel and light. I said screw it for Vietnam. I'm taking everything, including this tripod. I've been meaning to show this tripod for weeks now. For weeks.
Oh gosh.
This thing.
Did you steal that? Allie always says that I use manly tripods. Did you come up to my house and take that?
I did. I snuck in there across the borders. I need to review this. It is a Lee Photo tripod.
Is that a phone mount that you put on it?
Yes. Yes. I want my Instagram stories to be ultra stable.
Oh man.
It holds its weight, I believe, is 150 pounds that it'll hold. It gets high enough that I can just stand under it and hold on and hang. It's not a tripod. It's portable monkey bars.
So I could use a Toby weight to keep the tripod level. I could just, hey, Toby, get over here. I need you to hang under my tripod to keep the thing stable.
Give me one of them little cute sling chairs like they have at IKEA or something. I'll just sit right under there.
Oh, gosh. This could go so many bad ways.
Yeah, no, I'm not actually bringing that. I am. My goal is still travel light for Vietnam, but maybe not quite as light as I said. I'm giving myself the option. I mean, look at this. This is a pretty nice lightweight setup. This is the Sony a7R III with a 28 f2 lens on it, and when I want to, I can walk around with just that. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Okay. Hey, let's critique a few photos. For those of you who haven't watched the show in a while, we've moved this part up early on because we feel that it's really beneficial. It's one of those things we do. We don't just kind of say, hey, that's a good photo or that's a bad photo. We come in here and we say, let's take a look at your photos and talk about things that you could do to make them better next time, things that you could do to, I'm stalling while I find the share screen thing.
Well, actually, I'll mention something while you pull that up. You know, we're doing the image reviews now on the Pen discussion board. And if you want to take part in that, we highly encourage you to get into it. It's really, for me, it's been a lot of fun to see the posts that have gone up and then offer some suggestions. Make some minor edits so you can kind of see what we're talking about. And, you know, I don't consider myself any super expert by any means, but I just think that we want to create a forum where people really kind of review images together and chime in and tell what they like and what they would change and that kind of stuff. And I hope that people feel comfortable doing that in an environment that is not intimidating. We're not going to tell somebody, you know, your photo's crap, move on. There's ways of extracting a cool story out of almost any picture unless it's just super out of focus. So please get in there. You know, it's kind of just an extension of what we're doing here on Mish Mash, and this was a bit of the springboard that launched the idea of doing that. And we need your help, though. We need other people to chime in because we can only do so much, and we're getting ready to leave the country for a bit.
Yeah. Well said. And, you know, I think we moved this up because we love doing this. And I think it's just so valuable to be able to take some time and kind of dive into folks' pictures, and both here and also in the Photo Enthusiast Network on the message boards as well. And the higher level critiques, the second level tier that we all are going to be offering soon for critiques for those who, you know, feel like they're ready to be a professional or are a professional and looking for more serious feedback like they would get at the PPA level. That's the Professional Photographers of Association or of America, which, you know, then is a worldwide organization as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Let's start with Jamie's. I think these are some type of tiger lily or something. And I like this.
They are cool.
They are very cool. What I like to do, and I talk about filling the frame with your subject often, and clearly the flowers are the subject, and you've done a pretty nice job of that. But we could take it even to the next level. I'm going to hit into the develop module real quick. I'm going to get my crop tool, and I'm just going to get rid of all that corner of the deck and just come in really tight, just completely filling the frame with our flowers. And I like where your focus is down here. You know, we got a little bit that's up in our face that's out of focus. I personally am okay with that because there's some really neat detail down in the kind of the base of the flower, the little bits of pollen and those little speckles on the petals themselves. How do you feel about that, Steve?
That's exactly where my head was going as you started that edit, is to crop it down that way. I'm not sure that I'm crazy about that ratio right there. I don't know if it needs to be more of a 5:7 sort of ratio or an 8:10, just to kind of pull down that top flower so that you get all three of them in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I would do, though. And the reason for that is obviously filling the frame, but if you look at the original image, there was a lot of that decking. It was kind of like a burgundy decking that was showing up, and then there was a bright light spot down at the bottom of the frame. And Getting rid of those and just really highlighting the flowers with the green in the background, I think looks really nice. And they're just beautiful. You know, show them off. Be super intentional about your subject.
Yep. I'm just looking in chat. Jamie's in there, and she said that her client wants them printed at 24 by 36. So I went in here and I entered that custom. 24 by 36 is also what, a 4 by 6, I think. But I don't even want to do that math, so I just typed 24 by 36, and of course it figures it out. Only thing that starts to bother me when we get this tight is I feel like we're looking straight through, and so I want to move this around.
Yeah, I would still go wider, and then I would be very careful about each corner. You know, as you crop, kind of bring it in, make the crop tighter, make it wider, and try to fit it to where you've got some leading lines in the corners or ending lines in the corners, and you're not just cutting something off. Yeah. That lower left corner where you have it right now, I think that crop looks good, but that lower left corner, I would probably pull it into Photoshop, and I'd fill that with maybe the green from the center of the picture. Yeah.
Or maybe even try to stick another little petal in there.
Yeah. Or if you just do a lasso tool around that and a content aware fill, it'll probably just pick up some orange and throw it in there, and it'll look fine.
Yep. I agree. So I like this nice tight crop. Jamie, I think your exposure here is good. I think the colors are nice. I'm not sure that there's anything other major I would do to it. Steve, maybe warm it up a little bit.
Yeah. What is the what was the white balance? I shot.
It's on custom. Oh no, is that because I just moved it? Wow, it still says on custom. Let's see what as shot look like. About the same.
Yeah, you know, one thing to try, Toby, and I don't know if you want to talk to the audience a little bit about this, because I think you know about it definitely more than I do, but I've been playing around with it, is camera calibration at the very bottom. Looking at a couple of the options there, landscape is usually way too saturated and vivid, but it can really make things pop. I found the neutral is nice, and portrait is pretty vibrant. But using that, ooh, that's kind of nice. And then it needs more saturation and vibrancy though. But that brought some really nice three-dimensional depth to the petals.
I agree.
What was that? What calibration was that?
That was portrait, actually.
Huh, interesting.
Yep. I don't know if I know more than you about this, Steve. I just play around with it from time to time too. You know, after we taught that one class, I started to come down here more often, but I've kind of forgotten about it and gotten back away from that. I should remember to play down here a little bit more often, because they can really kind of add a nice starting point.
Exactly. And I'm a little disappointed that the default is all the way down at the bottom, because I find myself just, oh yeah, I've got this now. Because it just appeared in one of the most recent iterations of Lightroom. But I would probably move it up, you know, right by the basic panel, or even above it, just to kind of play around with it. Another tool.
Yeah. Jamie's talking about tilting it. I don't know if I would do any tilting here. You're just going to start to kind of skew, and there's nothing that really jumps out at me that needs that.
Well, I might consider tilting it clockwise slightly, so that lower left petal is kind of your starting point in that corner.
I see. I wasn't thinking about that kind of tilting.
Got less to kind of edit out of there, but yeah, try. Yeah, now you don't even have to do content aware fill. There's still a few hot spots in the very background, but I like where we're going with this. Yeah,
I think that's good. And Jamie, you're asking if it comes out dark, but how would it change going to canvas? Well, I mean, I'm editing at my brightness at half, and I think it looks quite nice at this. I think this exposure is good. It should come out pretty similar on canvas. All right. Lisa, I think I don't recognize Lisa's name from prior. So Lisa, thank you. If this is your first time, awesome. If it's not, I'm sorry, I've forgotten you. This is a cool shot. I love reflections.
Cool. Yep. Wow. Where is this? Does it say? Are there any notes?
Let's see if there's any notes. Midday sun is never ideal, but I had the chance to shoot these gardens when they weren't open to the public, so I did the best I could. Oh, good note. Okay. Yeah. You know, you could tell that it was shot during a brighter part of the day, but I think, again, your exposure, you managed your exposure overall here fairly nicely, and I don't really see any glaring issues from it. Oftentimes when I shoot during the midday, I try to warm it up a little bit just to kind of cut through some of that blue that seems to just kind of wash over everything that you get from a midday sun, and just warming it up a little bit cuts that. Not too much, though. Some areas look a little funny now. You could do some selective warmth as well. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Well, editing wise, that jet stream or whatever chemtrail up in the sky is totally bugging me. I would take that out of there because it's just I keep seeing it and I want to focus on that awesome bridge. But now when I shoot in midday sun, and actually, I mean, this looks really good. There's not, you're taking it from far enough away that the harsh shadows aren't really an issue. I would love to see if you would take the vibrance and saturation all the way down, start this off as a black and white, and then boost up the contrast and kind of average out the whites and blacks and just kind of see how this processes as a black and white. Because the sky doesn't have a whole lot that's interesting. I want to be focused on that bridge, and the sun is hitting the bridge very nicely. See how bright it is?
It's bright enough, but she exposed so that it's not, there's detail there, which I really like.
Now, what if we cut out the sky altogether? What if you came in a little tighter just on the bridge with the, you know, keep it maybe as a 4x6, but, or what is that, a 16:9?
Yeah, she had 16:9 already. So we could go to something even wider, like 21:9.
I'm just curious if we take the sky out and just leave the brightest element of the photo, the bridge.
Yeah. I like that as well.
Yeah, I like that because now I feel like I could actually walk around and go stand on that bridge, where before I felt like I was standing so far away just taking in the whole scene.
Yeah.
This obviously calls attention to the bridge, and you don't lose the impact of the reflection.
Yeah. I'm going to bring a linear gradient up from the bottom that just adds a little bit more clarity to make the reflection pop. Just a little bit more.
And now that we're in tight, you know, maybe it works better as a color image. I don't know. I just thinking out loud here.
Now it looks very yellow. Let's bring that back down. We can bring our tint to the left a tiny bit. And this is one place where you could come down into the individual color sliders as well and shift yellow to the right to get a little bit more green. And we could get our, careful now, I'm a little overdoing it, but shift our yellows to our greens as well. So we got a very rich green, but it only affects those colors, and it's not the same as coming up here to the black and white and bringing our overall saturation over, which then you can start to see like the bridge itself gets colorized, which is not good.
Yeah, I think if you come in tighter, sorry, my eyes, I was just drank my water wrong, I'm coughing. But if you come in tighter, I really am torn between black and white and color. They're equally as nice to me. I'm almost leaning towards the color just because that green is beautiful. But if you're going to keep it out and include the sky, I definitely prefer the black and white.
Okay. All right. Both nice options. Nicely done, Lisa. And now we got a Kate's up. And she reminds me to see the caption that this is a cool shot. All right, I had to shoot this in an opening in the vegetation surrounding the stream. I know it clipped part of the wing. Would it have been better to have zoomed out, getting some of the overhanging vegetation? Well,
so is this in fact cropped in?
I think it was cropped in camera, basically. I mean, she made the decision to shoot very tight to avoid the vegetation, and I
love it tight like this.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool shot.
It is. Now, this is we recommend this often when shooting wildlife, though. And you know, we don't like to say shoot with cropping in mind, but when shooting wildlife, it is nice to give yourself a little bit of room to play after the fact, because the animals and creatures are moving sometimes unpredictably, and having a little bit of extra room gives you could crop in and get this look with a very small loss of detail, or you could leave it wider, and then you have that choice. Kate, it's really hard, I think, to say for sure whether or not we would have preferred a slightly wider with some vegetation across the top. It really kind of depends on how distracting it was. I mean, you felt, I think, that it was distracting enough. And overall, I feel like Steve. I mean, this is a really cool shot, and I am drawn to that face that is just kind of looking straight at us as the swan is just kind of crashing into the water. The drops are all frozen, nice high shutter speed of 1/1000th of a second, captured all of that. And yeah, the wing on the right, the bird's left wing, is a little cut off, but
well, so I have a thought on that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me that much, because this shot it's awesome the way it is. I do find myself wanting to see the end of the wing over on that right side. But what if you cropped it down just a bit and you use the lower left side where the wing is hitting the water? That's kind of your visual starting point, leading left to right and diagonally across the frame, and then brought the other corner down right to where the top of the wing is. It's almost going corner to corner. You know what I mean?
Somewhere right around there.
Yeah, I don't know if that format is going to work. Is that a 4x6? Try a 5x7. Square it off just a little bit. I don't want to be too, actually, I kind of do like that, because I don't want to be too intentional about it just ending abruptly in the corner. Yeah, and maybe we need to leave a little bit more room than that. But
yeah, I like this because the intentionality of it. So, you know, Kate's kind of clarifying in chat that I think the vegetation actually was obscuring part of the wing. So that's what we're not, so we wouldn't really see the whole wing anyway.
Well, then I think she made the right choice.
Yeah. Yep. I do too.
And plus, just going in real tight like this, like, that's just such a cool shot.
It is.
Is it? It's hard to tell on my little screen, but is it really sharp and focused on the face?
It is quite sharp and focused on the face. It might feel a little over sharp, but I don't think so. I really like this.
Is there vignette applied to it at all?
Nope.
Maybe take that to like a 10 or a 15 and just see what that.
Yeah. Negative, right? Negative.
Yes, always negative.
Not my parents' wedding picture. But I just want to say that every time we talk about positive vignetting. I think it's good. And let's go back to basic real quick. Your whites are up at +17. If we double click on that, hold down Shift and double click, Lightroom sets them where it thinks they should be to have up to a pure white. And I think I think it's better. A little brighter. The swan looks a little less dingy. Blacks, they seem fine to me. Let's see if we hit that. It actually puts it at a +9. Yeah, really nice. And just to reiterate, by cropping in even a little bit tighter, it made it seem, Kate, like you were very intentional in your framing. And I think what Steve suggested here looks great. Nice. All right.
Yeah, well done.
Caroline has a pretty, this is the River Thames, right? Is that the river that runs right through downtown London? And a nice long exposure.
Yeah, and what is the exposure time on that?
Well, it actually just says it's 15 seconds, which...
Really?
Yeah.
With that cloud movement?
I know. I'm surprised as well. Let's see if Caroline left us any notes. I think she's in chat too. So Caroline, shout out if we're getting anything wrong here. No. All right. So this is the Lamberth Bridge and, of course, London. Oh, on New Year's Eve. That's right. We've seen your pictures from some of the fireworks shots. So this was waiting for fireworks shots. And it's pretty neat. The thing that is tricky here that I noticed first after kind of taking in the scene and love the kind of scuttling clouds, is that with this longer exposure, your lights are super hot, especially these red ones, and they look angry. And there's lots of them. And so that's tough. And, you know, you've taken your highlights all the way down, but there was just, with that exposure and that brighter light, there was just too much. And really the only thing I can suggest here is to take a couple of shots, exposure bracketing, and then blend so that on some of the shorter exposures, these lights wouldn't be quite so angry, and you'd have a little bit more detail in them. Because we get in, I mean, this one right here, especially, or this kind of whole cluster of them. I mean, London and Seattle, I think, are in a race for as many cranes as possible. And London is doing a pretty good job of competing in that race. So these are all, I believe, cranes from different buildings that are being rebuilt and stuff. So that's one thing. The other thing that's tricky here is we've got a couple different color temperatures. We've got kind of your night sky color temperature, and then we have lit by street lamps temperature over here. And that's tricky. And I think I would try, well, and Steve, jump in if you have any suggestions, but I might come into the yellow color and just kind of decrease its saturation a little bit. See, I'm mostly looking over here on the right, just dropping the saturation of yellow kind of balances that out. And sure, there's still some yellow cast in there, but it's not kind of overwhelming this whole section.
Yeah, okay, first of all, I love the shot. I love the wide crop factor. I would probably try to balance out the two. You've got the Ferris wheel on the left, and then you've got a building on the right with the same color roof as the Ferris wheel. So I would use those points to kind of crop and balance it out. And then I'd like to see the bridge down in the lower third, because there's not a lot to the water. Yeah, you've got a little bit of a reflection, but all the activity, all the movement and the feeling is in the sky. And obviously at a 15-second exposure with that kind of movement, you know, and I see in here, Caroline did say that the clouds are moving pretty fast. I'd maybe even put the bridge a little lower than that in the frame, just to get more of that sky, because I mean that's just cool. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, when it was dead centered, I'm a little concerned about, you can see in the very middle that the bridge looks to be very in focus, or it looks clear, but it seems to almost fall off on the sides where you tone down the yellows. Mm-hmm. And then on the left side by the Ferris wheel, is it soft on focus? It's kind of hard for me to tell.
I think it's all right. It's not quite as sharp as the middle. And I think what we're seeing here is, Caroline, this was a panorama, I believe, that you shot probably vertically based on how much information is up there.
Okay.
And I wonder if there was enough of a difference change for your depth of field, if you didn't refocus between shots, which typically you should not do when shooting a panorama, that might be falling out, or it might just be a fact of stitching these together and warping a little bit, that they got a little bit more. Oh, it's not a panorama. Never mind. She says it's not a panorama. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to
go down to. Go down to lens correction. Mm-hmm. And oh, sorry, transform. Got my modules mixed up. And hit auto there and see what it does. No, never mind. Okay.
Never mind, Lightroom.
And it probably was lens correction. It just looks, maybe bowed, but I think it looks bowed because the center is very focused. Mm-hmm. And the edges look a little soft. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's a challenge for me visually is because there is so much softness in the sky, and looks to be movement in the clouds. And then you can see some of the softness with the water. The still elements, like the bridge and the buildings and the lights and stuff, have to be that much clearer in focus to contrast the movement that's going on above and below those elements. And so visually, your eye is just going to completely glue itself to the clear elements. And I think that's, Toby, where you're finding that those lights are a bit hot too, because your eye just darts around between the centers of each of those lights that are a little hot. So I think it's a really cool, awesome image, and it invokes a lot of nice feeling, and the colors are great and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna some fine tuning.
Yep. I'm just gonna bring up just brighten this area a little bit more, and then you saw me do this trick once already with Lisa's, but I'm just gonna bring a linear gradient up from the bottom and increase the clarity a little bit to make those reflections there pop. And I might bring the exposure up just a tiny bit and the shadows up just a tiny bit, just to kind of really emphasize that reflection there. Nice. All right.
Yeah. Cool. We've got totally cool shot. I love that.
Yep. Yep. All right. We've got Laurie Walker's Sea Steam. This is cool because it looks like there's snow on the beach there. I don't remember where Laurie lives, but this is neat. Let's see. Well, she's titled this, I'm taking this in. She's titled this Sea Steam, but that's not like the first thing that hits me. So it was what caught her eye, I'm assuming, and is what made her stop and take the picture. But now when you look at it, yeah, you could tell there's steam out there, but I really want to see it like you saw it, Laurie. And so I think this is a great example of thinking about what's caught your eye and taking a picture, and you're going to see it because, well, you're there, but really saying, is my viewer going to see this? Does this really kind of like hit them in the face? Did I fill the frame with my subject? And so, I mean, this is not what I'm saying we should do to this image, but I want to use it as an example of if you were still there and you could still take a picture, something like this, where you really kind of get in and really showcase there's the steam coming up out of the sea and obscuring this little island or land outcrop in the background. That's one thing. And then I like these rocks and the snow on them. I like the tree, some of the tree. It kind of grounds us and gives us a sense of place. But I think I'm going to come in because what's going on in the sky? Steve, what's happening in the sky?
Not a whole lot. You're doing exactly what I was going to recommend. And yeah, to your point, first of all, the sea steam, that's a really cool thing when the water, it's almost like a frozen water temperature is the air above it is colder, and it pulls this steam up. And I've got a shot of Chicago, I think I mentioned it on the show before, where it was so cold. It was like 40 below with the wind chill right on Lake Michigan. And it just created this massive amount of steam that covered the whole city. And in order to get that, you would have to go back and take the shot again with a zoom lens and get in tight like you did. I think if you crop it in too tight like that, you're just going to totally lose the clarity of it and quality of the photograph. But I like how you came in tighter. I would personally like to see the on the lower left-hand corner, if you go back out to the original shot, just a little bit of that. Maybe move it up now, or move the shot down in the frame. Yeah, up a little bit more, and right about there. Go ahead and hit that. Let's take a look at it.
I'm going to bring those shadows up. I want to see a little bit more of the detail on the rocks and the snow. Laurie's in chat. She says it was -6.
Yeah.
Shot. So I might bring my overall exposure up a little bit.
Yeah, I'd bring the exposure up. I would definitely make it pop. And I think a graduated filter down at the bottom to get the foreground detail would be awesome. The sky, there's just not much going on there. I might consider this as a black and white. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The other thing I might do is try to use a little, I'm doing it now, use a little temp and tint to see if I can kind of tease out, because I feel like we've got a setting sun over on the left, or a rising sun, that's casting a little bit of warmer glow. We look at these clouds off here, and they want to pop with a little bit of pink.
Yeah, yeah.
So I might play with our temp a little bit, our tint, and see if we can tease that out as well.
And perhaps a long wide crop might work better, because I feel like I've cut off too much of the trees. Like they're an afterthought at the end of the photograph, and I'd like to maybe show more of them, maybe to the point where the two big ones in the middle intersect. And I don't know if is that a buoy out there?
It is a buoy. Yep.
I would clip that out.
Yeah.
It just keeps distracting me. I know it kind of shows perspective, so I was almost reluctant to say that, but the more I looked at it, it was like dead center, and it kept bringing my eye to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I think we've done good work here. I think there's some neat detail. But this is a good thing to keep in mind when I ask myself, hey, what should I be foreground heavy or background heavy? Where's the interesting stuff happening? And since we've got not much above that bit of cloud, then let's de-emphasize that in our shots. Cool shot, Lori, and thanks for going out there so I didn't have to. -6 All right, Jamie's got another one. Multnomah Falls, which, Steve, I don't think you've been here, have you?
I haven't. No, I was going to go when we were in Oregon recently, but because of the fires, we couldn't get to it.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Okay, we're going to be fairly quick on this one because we need to move on as well. And Jamie's got one critiqued already. I mean, this is a beautiful spot. I think you've done a pretty nice job. It feels a little hot to me. I'm going to bring my exposure down a little. We got a snoring dog in here. Lana, I'm trying to do a professional show. I can't have
that a girl
snoring dog in the background. All right, and I'm going to bring the highlights down a bit as well to really. I want a little bit more detail out of that water. What else, Steve?
I'm kind of curious if you do a really tall, skinny 16, not even a 16:9. You almost have to do a manual crop, but just a tall, thin crop, getting that whole thing in there with a little bit of foreground, and just really don't apologize about what the subject is in this. It's the falls, just throw them dead center and and bringing those highlights down, and maybe even making the greens pop a little bit more. That's so cool. I'm so bummed that we didn't get there.
Yep.
Great shot.
Maybe next year. I might have overdone it a little bit on the greens, but yeah, I think I think it's a good shot in either this crop. I think the original crop works as well, but just bringing the highlights down just a little bit. Nice. All right. Hey, everybody, as we've said before, I'll sit up straight and look at you. Thanks for putting your work out there in front of us. I know it's not easy, but I think you found some value in it. All great shots, and we look forward to next week's as well, or next shows, because there's a little break as we will be traveling around Vietnam for a while. All right, a couple of news items that we want to hit on. And first up is Panasonic has announced the GH5s for sensitive. It's Panasonic's most sensitive camera yet. And that doesn't mean if you say bad things about it, it finds itself crying in the corner right away.
It's going to have a hard time in this climate.
It's true. Basically, it is on the outside, the GH5, form, function, feel in the hand, except it's got a shiny red record button and a shiny dial underneath the mode button. All of the new changes are inside. And the emphasis from the S and the sensitive is low light performance. Because if there's one thing that's kind of held the GH series back or Panasonic in general, is the fact that they are micro four thirds sensors, which means they don't do quite as well in low light because they're smaller sensors. And the smaller the sensor, typically, the harder time it has in low light, a little bit more noisy it gets. The S model seems, from what early reports that I'm hearing, to be significantly an improvement. However, that's at the cost of a couple of different things. One, GH5, you're working with a 20-ish megapixel sensor. I think it's 21. The GH5s, you're down to just 10 megapixels. Now, for video, that doesn't matter. It's this, same video resolutions. But if you want to use it as a stills camera as well, that's a pretty significant difference. And we've lost the low light, the IBIS, the dual IS. The sensor stabilization system does not exist in the GH5s. Kristen has got a question. She's been thinking about the GH5 for a while now that the S is out and the low light improvements. Is it the better camera to go with, or should she consider Sony? And here's what I'll say about this. I love the GH5. I think it is an amazing, awesome video-focused camera that can also take pretty good still images. I should say very good still images. And I have no desire to upgrade to the GH5s because I'm shooting in kind of all different kinds of light. And for me, the big issue that I love from the GH5, or the big thing that it does, is that dual stabilization. It makes handheld footage look lovely. But if I was a serious wedding or event videographer primarily working in lower light, then I would consider the GH5s as either an upgrade or the camera to move to from an earlier model, because it looks like it's very good, much better.
But isn't that in-camera stabilization a benefit to video as well? Or is that just for...
No, it is. It is for video. So why did they take it out? They said because most of the people that are going to be working with it on in this kind of system anyway are going to put it on stabilizers, and so don't need that. And I guess that also allowed them to increase the sensitivity by removing that a little. So
I'm kind of left wondering who is the buyer for that. It seems like an awfully small population.
Well, I think for serious wedding videographers, I think the desire to have good wedding video and event video and all kinds of light is only increasing. I mean, people always get wedding pictures, but more and more they're also getting video. And I think that's a pretty big market. And so that right there is a good portion of it. And then you got music video, anybody serious about video that may find themselves having to shoot in lower light and want cleaner performance. And you say, well, Toby, why wouldn't you want the GH5s? Because I would choose the stabilization, easy run and gun for the type of video, the vlog style I do. I'm okay if when I'm talking to the camera, I'm a little noisier in lower light situations for a vlog. I don't feel like I need ultra clean all the time, but I really do like how stable the camera is when I take those shots.
So your GH5, how long has that been on the market now? About a year?
Just less than 10 months.
Okay.
I think, April of last year.
What is Panasonic's introductory rate? Usually every couple years? Like the GH6 will be another year out?
Yeah, at least, I would say. Yeah.
Do you think that would be a camera that would have low light performance and stabilization?
That's a great question. Where will they go from here? What will there be for the future a GH6 and a GH6s, or will they kind of merge back together? I don't know. I'd love to.
Yeah, I guess I'm left kind of wondering, like, are they just packing their latest technology into a mid intro camera while they wait a little longer before getting the GH6 out to have it all?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Speaking about wanting it all or having it all, this isn't really a good segue, but Canon has come out and say, hey, we're a little behind in the innovation, which I think that's a bit of a understatement. Steve, you're a Canon shooter, and you read this article? Can you summarize it for us?
Well, so what I did is I clicked in and I read the interview with was it the CEO?
Mm-hmm.
Forgot the guy's name. He's like 82 years old. He's running Canon. Anyway, he seems to know what he's talking about. I'm going to assume he does because, for one, I love my Canon products, and that's no secret. And for two, he's actually admitting that Canon is a little behind when it comes to innovation. And I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of Canon owners would feel the same way. And certainly non-Canon people are very vocal about Canon lagging behind. But he said that, you know, this is because of the technology that's advancing so quickly. It gives a lot of up-and-comers an opportunity to get to the market with something and really make an impact. And you got to be careful of that. You know, Canon has been on top for so long that I don't know if they're just resting on their laurels or what, but it sounds like he didn't mention much about the photography market or the office copy products market, which I'm kind of looking at going, all right, they make a lot of different office materials or equipment, copiers as one thing. Aren't those kind of going away? Like, I know there's big professional markets, but who the heck uses a copier anymore? I mean, I just scan everything using my smartphone.
Yeah.
So you got that, and then you got the camera world, and it's obvious that Canon really needs to come out with a full frame mirrorless camera. I'd love to see them do that. It's long overdue. Anyway, it's refreshing to hear them say that, because what is it? Step number one in a 12-step program is admitting that you have a problem. And so at least they're admitting that. And where it goes from here is to be seen. But it's comforting to know that they're at least talking about it and they don't just have their heads in the sand or not in touch with what's going on out there, because everything is moving so quickly. And these Sony cameras that are coming out are just incredible. And the Nikon D850, I know it's a DSLR, but I mean, this stuff is just moving quickly. And I don't think, you know, as a 5D Mark IV shooter, I don't know, can we just hold on every 4 or 5 years for the next product? You know, the cameras are sturdy enough and they're good enough right now, they can, but 5 years from now, 5 years with technology is just going to be eons.
Yeah, and I agree. They're admitting this is a big step forward. Hopefully, I mean, this is a public admission. Hopefully, in the boardroom for a while now, they've been like, Sony and Fuji are kicking our butts with these performance. We need to get up there too. So I don't know. We'll see. But this whole line of they're looking for growth outside photography and wants new non-camera business to generate 30% of sales, while cameras generate 30%. So, you know, I just remember years ago when we used to do this show, and I was, you know, when Sony was first coming out, and I was like, Canon's sitting there saying, we got all the lenses. You know, you can go to these other guys, but you're going to come back to us because we got all the lenses. Well, that's, you know, only kept them going so far, so long. And certainly Fuji and Sony and Panasonic are coming up strong. And none of those people or companies that I just named have to replace Canon, but altogether, they've taken a big chunk out of Canon. And, you know, we see it on the trips when people, this last trip, we had 2 Fuji shooters, and maybe that was it, just 2 Fuji. I mean, primarily these trips are dominated by Canon and Nikon, but certainly within the last year and 2 years, we've seen more people show up with other models that we haven't in the past.
Well, and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I'll switch brands. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but I'm always looking at what people have and I'm always helping them out with their gear. And man, that Fuji X-T2 is so cool. And the other camera that we were just talking about, you and I were talking about the other day, is the Fuji X100F. You know, you can't change out the lenses, but just a walk around neat little camera to take in places like Vietnam. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, we'll
So
be
yeah,
talking more about that. David, who has been a Canon shooter his whole life, he's bringing his Canon, but he recently picked up a Fuji X100F and will be bringing it along to Vietnam as well. And maybe at the end of this trip, he'll be like, "Why am I carrying these Canons around?" So we'll see. We'll see.
Could be.
Hey, next quick bit of news. Just briefly, we've been asked for, you know, recommendations for tripods in the forum, and we talk about this a lot. We like the Me photos, but tell us a little bit about your head, Steve.
Oh,
your tripod head. You want me to start with my little puny one?
No. God. Yeah, you might as well just keep going with this one.
Look at this. So in an effort, this is the tripod I'm actually bringing to Vietnam. It has no center column. Well, you can switch out. It's the Siru, which this brand I haven't loved when I had a head of theirs earlier, but now I'm trying this out. It's very lightweight. I've got the switch legs instead. I want to see how I like those. It's been a while since I've used them. And I've put this really cheap Bond Photo head on because it's the smallest and lightest that I have. And overall, this tripod that gets tall enough that I'm happy weighs just over 2 pounds. So
yeah,
that's good. But every time I look over at your tripod head, Steve, I'm a little jealous.
Well, okay. So what I have, just so people in the audience knows this, I use a Really Right Stuff BH55 ball head. It's like their Cadillac of tripod ball heads, and I got it when I was doing my real estate business. I needed a really good, really stable tripod ball head, and I was using a pretty large tripod. So the weight didn't matter. It was just sitting in the back of my car. But the thing is, I love that ball head so much that anytime I've tried any other tripod out with a different ball head, I can certainly compliment it, but I can't wait to just get back to the one that I have. It's built like a tank. It'll outlast me. It's definitely one of these situations where you get what you pay for. It's insanely expensive, and that stung a lot when I bought it, but I saw it as an investment in my real estate photography business. But it has turned into just, I know that thing in and out, you know, and when you travel like we do and you're taking landscape shots and using your tripod all the time, being able to just use that thing without looking at it, knowing exactly what's going on with it. And it'll survive anything. I mean, it's been through every type of weather you can imagine. Fell in the mud, it's fallen down rocks, and I just get it home, use a sponge with some clean water and clean it right off. So I love it. I'm going to pick up the BH30. Unfortunately, not before this Vietnam trip. It would have been perfect for that trip, but I'm going to get it for traveling in general. I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, and probably combine it with either my wife's Me Photo carbon fiber Globetrotter legs, or I've got pretty small enduro alloy legs that are, they get a little heavy, but they're not too bad. I do like those clips, Toby. I noticed on that one you mentioned that you're going to try that out on this trip. I like those a lot. They're super quick and easy to adjust. I would never buy them for myself, though, because we go to places like Alaska and these really cold environments, and I don't want these plastic clips that are going to get hard and possibly break. That is a concern. But you know, I mean, that's not really much of a concern for most people out there in terms of ease of use and confidence in just being able to adjust your tripod quickly. Those clips are super efficient.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about that Really Right Stuff head, I was showing some pictures of it while you were talking, is the lever lock for the quick release of putting your camera in and out, much faster than the kind of the tilting of the knob. And also it's a completely different knob. We talk about this in the dark. We talk about this when we're shooting in the dark. Beginners oftentimes forget what knob does what, and we actually had 2 cameras hit the ground on this Yosemite trip. In both cases, they were okay. You know, one speaks to the power of the durability of the 5D Mark IV, and that, you know, it just flat out landed on the sidewalk, and it was okay.
I remember in Croatia, mine fell. The wind blew my tripod down when I was doing something else, and it fell right on the cement dock. And it dented the little D-ring that you put the strap onto, but that's
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So just having something so different to put your camera on and off and not accidentally grab that in the dark is just much better.
Yeah, it's a latch like those of you that ride bicycles and you pop your front wheel on or off. It's the exact same kind of lever mechanism as on a bicycle wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gosh, it's super, super stable. And the quickness, you may not think is that big of a deal, but when you want to just quickly take like, you know, a vertical shot or take your camera off for a second or to adjust it one way, you're constantly fiddling with your tripod. And every little second, actually, you start to notice after a while, the more you use it. For those who have like the Mi Photo or something with a twist knob on the plate, I always say this on our tours, always put that underneath the lens. Don't put it on the back of the camera because you might accidentally adjust it. Put it under the lens where it's going to be hidden away and hard to get to. And on the Mi Photo, you actually, that way, will see a little level on the backside that you can use for your camera.
Good suggestions. Okay, a couple of news stories. We're just going to read the headlines too. And as I said already, photorec.tv/MMH. And you can learn, you can read these articles for yourself and learn a little bit more. One is, speaking of durability, Imaging Resource, Dave and his crew, Dave's a really nice guy, put together the water torture test. Basically, they simulated different kinds of rain on a Nikon D850, the Sony a7R III, the Canon 5D Mark IV, and the Olympus EM1 Mark II. And, well, the Sony a7R II or III did not do so well. It got wet enough, the water got in it enough that it just started taking pictures all on its very own. Good news was, after they let it dry out, it seems to be fine, but that certainly is concerning that enough water was in there to somehow short it out, that long term you have to worry. So that does make me, especially since I just got back from Yosemite, where I did let the a7R III get a little bit wetter than I usually like, just because it was kind of raining and misting on us. So going forward, I'm going to be a little bit more careful about how much rain gets on that.
I thought you were going to say the good news is the camera started taking better shots than the on its own than the person operating it.
Yeah. And GoPro is done with their drones. I'm not surprised, but I thought they would at least hold on and maybe try one more model or something, but they've exited the drone market, cut 250 jobs, and they've also dropped the price of the GoPro Hero 6 by $100, which I think, you know, it's been out long enough that that's not shocking, but they're struggling. We've talked about that before.
So what is the GoPro Hero 6 now? Is that $400? Was it $500?
It should have been it should have been $499, and now it's $399.
Okay.
And, you know, I did a video that basically told people not to buy these GoPros unless they had a specific use for them, because so many of us have bought them and it's just a super wide angle, and there's other options that are better for many of us. But for some people, the GoPros are the best option. This price makes it a little bit better. None of the knockoff brands, though, do anything as as close in quality, except for maybe the young innovators. But, you know, even that. So we'll see it. Okay.
So real quick, because I'm curious, and I didn't read the article, the water torture test.
Yes.
Do you have results on how each of those did ranking wise?
Oh, well, basically, all of them were fine, except for the Sony.
Oh, okay.
The Nikon and the Canon, one of those two, they had some water that appeared inside the viewfinder and a little bit of condensation under the LCD. But
I've gotten that a few times.
But no issues at all. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've gotten a little too confident with my my Canon cameras in the rain. I've literally like stopped using a rain sleeve. I just kind of tuck it under my jacket and then take it out and shoot, wipe off the front of the lens when I need to take the pictures. And it's gotten absolutely drenched so many times. But it keeps.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's that whole question of what does weather resistant mean, and I think it's something that Canon and Nikon have done very well for years with pretty serious gaskets around things, and you know, they're sealed up pretty good. I did have a 5D Mark III though that I got enough water damage that I had to send it in for motherboard replacement. So, and it got wet. It was raining pretty hard during that wedding, but was it raining that hard? I don't know. So it's such a kind of like unmeasurable thing. But that the imaging resource article that we've got linked there is interesting and worth taking a look at. We got a little segment of the show where Roy and I talk about how rich we're not getting selling stock photography. And Roy, you're up to $14.44. If you all remember from last week, I said I cashed out my $220-ish that I had earned over the past year. Truthfully, year and like 2 months, 14 months. I'm now back up to $2.31. But very interesting. I just want to show a few of these pictures. 500 pics. Lana, trying to do a show. No snoring dog. Roger sent this along from 500 pics. What's behind a top-selling photo? An interview with Dina Balenko. And I'm just going to share, we're going to scroll through this real quick. It's an easy, fun read. I love that this woman says she gets most of her inspiration from listening to podcasts that have nothing to do with photography. That really speaks to me. It's like drawing your inspiration from outside of kind of your insulation. But so here's just some of the pictures. She uses a D800, 2 speed lights and a very steady tripod and a couple of soft boxes. All of them by Westcott, which is a very nice, good brand name. Before that, she used a nameless Chinese lighting kit and was quite happy with it until I had to transfer it to a restaurant for shooting. What a nightmare that was. And that's the big catch, that I think when you pay good money for lighting gear, it will survive a move. When you pay really cheap, if it's going to be set up in your garage or your studio space and never moved, you're probably going to be pretty all right. But this is one of their top selling images. It's always coffee time. And this was a composite. They only had 4 cups of the same size, so they had to make a composite image. But it's really cool. And then here's her marketplace here. Just real quick, because I think what we think of stock photography so often is quite different these days. But here are the images we're looking at. Let's see if I go a little ways this way. They're very interesting. These are all kind of these stylized. I love this little raspberry perfume, little smoke action going on.
Man, this is cool stuff. I like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is her full-time gig, and so I think this is really interesting to see these images that are very different from, I think, what we usually typically consider stock photography. And these are cool, very cool.
Wow. You get so much inspiration from artists like this.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I thought that was interesting. It's worth your time reading. I summarized it in a bit, but basically that's it. We're going to skip photos from space, and I hurried up so much that let's talk. Well, Kristen, I think we answered your question. Thoughts on the GH5s announcement. I think I answered that. And basically, if your primary focus is video, it's really hard to beat the GH5. Only if you're going to be shooting in lower light should you really consider the GH5, or primarily shooting in lower light should you consider the GH5s. The exclusion or the dropping of the sensor stabilization is a bummer, and I think for some people that has a higher value than just the low light capabilities, because it's not like the GH5 is bad in low light, it's just not as good at the higher ISOs. And how about the Sony? We really should compare like a Sony a6300 versus the GH5s. Those comparisons should be out within the next month or so. I'd be really interested to see, and hopefully I'll make one as well, but I don't know yet.
6300 or 6500?
Well, okay, so that's a great question. Both. 6500 has a stabilized sensor. Both of them have the same 4K capabilities, but the big difference is the 6500 has a stabilized sensor as well. So it's not the nice dual stabilization that you're going to get from the GH5, but it is a little bit more additional stabilization as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious to see how the 65 stacks up against the GH5s. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I'm itching to wrap this show up a little bit because I got a package waiting for me at my mailbox center.
What is it?
It is the Sony 24-105.
Oh.
So that's going to be my main walk around lens, I believe, for Vietnam. As part of my kind of travel lighter, I'm really excited to take that lens. I've shot with it a bit on the Sony Sedona event. I know it's a good sharp lens. It covers a really nice range. But here's the thing. I'm honest with you all, because I always am. I think I am going to end up taking my GH5 as well. So I've got the one Sony A7R III, and I could take just that. But there are times where it's really nice to shoot a time lapse. And if I only have one camera, I'm just going to be standing there watching it shoot a time lapse. It'd be nice to have another camera shooting a time lapse. While I can walk around and take pictures, and vice versa, switch those cameras out. And so I could take the Sony A7R II and then share lenses, but they got different batteries. And I take the GH5 and it's one lens and two batteries, and I'm good to go with it. And it's so easy to shoot time lapses with, and it's easier to shoot video on the go with than the Sony movement video. Because then the other thing I could take is the gimbal, but the gimbal is big, and I don't want to take a big gimbal. So the GH5 is smaller than the gimbal.
For packing light.
and I'm going to bring the dog. No, not really.
Well, now you're definitely not packing light.
I know.
Archer.
Yeah.
Little heavyweight. He's he's like all muscle, that guy.
He's a solid little guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
What's Lana still snoring away, huh?
No, she got up and she's sitting on the chair too. She's just too heavy for me to pick up. I can't pick her up, throw my back out. Steve,
yeah, I've carried her home from our walks before.
I didn't tell you this, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to release this show public after the fact, because this was a great show. I mean, they all are, but I want people to see my cute dog. More people than just her in pen right now. So I'll probably tack on a little intro, but this is where I'm going to say, if you're not already a photo enthusiast member, you should consider joining, because not only do you get to chat with us during the course of this show, you get access to hundreds of hours of video content from my Lightroom videos. Steve, you've put up stuff about shooting architecture and straightening your lines, to Dave and Allie, who have years of portrait experience between them, have shared their content, and Photoshop stuff. I mean, hundreds of hours of content, and it's all there, plus the discussion board, plus this video, plus the Tuesday tips, plus the discounts on the travel. So, I mean, there's just a ton of content and a ton of benefits to joining. So if you've watched all of this show and you realize, hey, we still do it. I don't have the nice wood background here, but the content we're talking about is good. And of course, the kind of the personal interaction, which I think we excel at more than anybody else out there, where if you've got questions, you're concerns, you're trying to figure this photography thing out, we're here for you. So
yeah, and this is, you know, Toby and I, we do not converse very much leading up to this show. I get the show notes, I take a quick glance at them, and then we kind of just get on and wing it. And personally, I like it that way, because it's just authentic and it's off the cuff, and we're thinking through things. There's none of this is rehearsed or anything. This is strictly a way to invite you to sit at the table and chat with us about the week that has passed. And I think that that's a really cool thing. I hope you guys do too. I know many of you keep logging on each week, so I know that we're an asset to your week, and can't say how much I appreciate that. But yeah, releasing it out to everybody, let them know kind of what we're all about. We're just two dudes talking about photography. I definitely do not consider myself much of an expert in anything, but it's fun to come together and chat with you folks and get all of our heads together, and through that process we all get better together. So thank you, Toby, for hosting this, and I'm looking forward to catching up in Vietnam. It's going to be a really fun time.
Me too. Me too. You sell yourself short, though, Steve. You're definitely an expert in making Manhattans.
That I am. I will own that one. My recipe is perfected, and anybody want to come over and have a Manhattan here and listen to a little Frank Sinatra, this is the place to be.
And you sell yourself short too. You're a fantastic photographer and instructor too.
Thanks.
And where can people see more of your work, Steve?
That is a really good question. And part of my New Year's resolution is to update my website. I have a website at stevescurich.com, but it is way, way, way outdated. So I apologize for that. But you can find out, just read my story and see a little bit of my work there. It's older stuff though, and I really want to do that. But hit me up on Facebook too. You know, as long as we've got some mutual friends, I use that kind of as a business tool. I don't get too involved with politics and things like that. I just like it to kind of tell you what we're doing photographically, where we're touring, share some pictures. And it just, the audience on my personal page has grown more than Steve Scurich Photography, but you can like that page as well. And I'm not as good on Instagram. I need to get better at that. So anyway, stevescurich.com, or just find me on Facebook and send me a friend request.
Sounds good, Steve. Well, hey, thanks so much for spending some time with us. And yeah, I'll see you Friday night or Saturday day. I don't know what time it'll be when we actually see each other in Vietnam.
Yeah,
we leave here on Friday, but we land and we lose a day or something. So
we gain a day.
We gain a day.
We like take off and land on the same day. It's
time travel. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, for some reason, I kept imagining flying east because, you know, from here, now that I've moved, I fly east more often. But actually, that's not true. But no, it's a long haul over the Pacific, man.
It's a long haul. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Steve, thanks so much. Folks in the chat, thank you. As I said at the opening of the show, you make the show infinitely better than just Steve and I chatting to each other and me holding my dog up every once in a while. So thanks for joining us. We will be back in the first week of February. That's when we'll be back and have our next show. We'll be gone for a little while. Steve, thanks. Take care, buddy. And we're signing off. Bye-bye.
Bye.